A poor girl got into the millionaire CEO's car thinking it was an Uber and won his heart before we begin the story. Leave a comment, letting us know which city you're watching from. Enjoy the story. Grace Stone was late, very late. She had just ordered a ride through the app, but as soon as she confirmed it, her phone screen went black dead battery. She sighed, shoved the phone into her bag, and tried unsuccessfully to shield herself from the rain with an umbrella that looked more like a crumpled piece of origami. Her heart raced as she looked around, searching for a sign of rescue. That's when a black car identical to the one from the app stopped right in front of her at a red light. "Thank goodness you're here," she shouted, opening the door with one hand while holding the umbrella with the other. "I'm late. Go, go, go. Step on it. Today is the new CEO's presentation at Stonebridge Corporation, and if I show up late, I'll be fired before I even sign the contract." Cracked. And they say, he's super strict, the kind of guy who never cracks a smile. The man behind the wheel slowly turned his head, a perfectly tailored dark suit, a serious face, gray eyes that barely blinked. "Excuse me, but don't even start with excuse me. I get it, terrible traffic. Red lights, GPS going in circles, but now just go straight and turn right after the cafe, with the French name, by the way. Did you know they charge $9 for a croissant?" 9. I had one yesterday, and I'm still chewing on the guilt. He blinked once. Then again, his hand on the steering wheel moved slowly. "Miss, maybe." "Oh, no, I know. You must think I'm crazy, and maybe I am. My alarm didn't go off, my coffee burned my tongue, and on top of that, she paused dramatically and turned toward him. Eyes wide. I put on mismatched socks. Look at this." She lifted the hem of her pants slightly, revealing one sock with Christmas penguins and the other with Mexican tacos. Now the man took a deep breath. The light turned green, and he drove off. Grace sighed in relief and leaned back into the seat, finally letting her wet umbrella soak the car's carpet. "Thank you, you're a lifesaver or a very quiet Uber driver." "Oh, and sorry for not confirming your name. My phone died on the way, but since you stopped right when I needed you, it had to be you. You know this is fate, like a romantic comedy, but without the romance, and without the comedy. Although, I mean," she laughed to herself. The man at the wheel kept his eyes on the road, but the corners of his lips twitched, barely noticeable. "Almost are you always this quiet, the mysterious, professional driver type? I like that seriously. You must hear the craziest passenger stories. If I were you, I'd write a book. Memoirs of a Silent Uber Driver, guaranteed bestseller." He glanced at her briefly as if questioning his own sanity. Then he turned back to the road and this car. Way too fancy. Not sure if anyone has told you, but wow, smells like new leather and money. I feel rich. Just sitting here, which is good. Since I need to balance out that $9 croissant. The man remained silent. "You're a great listener. Has anyone ever told you that?" He didn't answer. She looked out the window, saw the company building approaching, and tried to fix her rain-dampened hair. "Could you drop me off at the side entrance, please? Less chance of anyone seeing the mess I'm in. If I had known where working here required this much visual dignity, I would have made a deal with a makeup artist." The car slowed down. He pulled up to the curb with perfect precision. "Thanks a lot, really. I swear. I'll give you 5 stars as soon as I charge my phone." She jumped out, turned to thank him once more, but he was already looking straight ahead, as if the moment had meant nothing at all. Little did she know. Grace rushed into the building, huffing and puffing, messy hair mismatched box, and a shirt missing a button. The elevator doors nearly closed on her face, but a kind soul held them open when she reached her team's floor. She slipped in among the other employees, trying to blend in. "Hey, Grace, you almost missed the meeting with the new CEO," whispered a co-worker. "I know, crazy Uber. Crazy traffic, chaotic, empending. The sound of a knock on the door interrupted the murmurs. The coordinator walked in with a nervous smile. Everyone letting head to the conference room. The new CEO is here. A buzz spread through the room. Grace took a deep breath and followed the group, still trying to fix her hair with her fingers. As soon as everyone settled in, the conference room door slowly opened. Firm footsteps echoed across the floor, and then he appeared, impeccable suit-commanding presence, and the gray eyes she had already seen that morning. The world stopped for a second. Grace's eyes widened, the color drained from her face. The folder she was holding slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. "This is Mr. Thomas Miller, our new CEO," the coordinator announced excitedly. Thomas stepped right up to the desk, scanning the room until his eyes landed on her. A small smirk appeared at the corner of his mouth. "I hope my arrival today didn't catch anyone off guard," he said, his gaze still locked on Grace, especially those who mistook me for an Uber driver. The silence in the room was so deep that the sound of a paperclip dropping would have echoed like thunder. All eyes turned to Grace, who stood frozen as if she had been transformed into a life-size statue of pure embarrassment. The new CEO, or rather the Uber driver she had bossed around like a frantic general, was now standing there in the flesh, dressed in an impeccable Italian suit, looking right at her with a smile that was equal parts amusement and sarcasm. "It's great to see such dedicated faces." Thomas continued, his eyes never leaving hers. "I look forward to working with all of you for a productive term, especially those who put blind trust in mysterious drivers with luxury cars." A quiet chuckle came from somewhere in the back of the room. Grace wished she could dig a hole in the floor and live in it forever. Miss Stone, for example. He went on, subtly motioning toward her, as already demonstrated great initiative and logistical creativity, important qualities. Grace forced an awed smile, completely unable to speak. Her heart was pounding like a drum in a parade. Thomas then shifted his focus and continued his introduction as if nothing had happened, but Grace knew he knew. And worse, he was enjoying this. As he talked about goals, strategic plans, and restructuring, all Grace could hear was the loud voice in her own head, screaming, "You told the CEO to step on the gas. You talked about your penguin and taco socks. You called him a silent Uber driver." When the meeting ended and people started getting up, Grace tried to slip out the side of the room, hoping to disappear into thin air. But she wasn't fast enough. Miss Stone Thomas called politely, but with a tone that hinted at a hidden smile. She turned slowly, like someone about to face their fate. "Yes, sir." He took 2 steps toward her. They were now face to face, with their colleagues pretending not to listen, but clearly eavesdropping, like it was a live TV drama. "I hope your ride here today was pleasant," he said with a serious expression, though his eyes sparkled. With mischief, Grace forced a tight-lipped smile. "Oh, very pleasant, sir. One of the best Ubers I've ever taken." He raised an eyebrow. "Good to know, although I do believe some drivers deserve more than just 5 stars. Maybe a promotion?" She let out a nervous laugh. "Oh, that's not necessary. I mean, the driver was great, but I'm not sure he's interested in a higher position." Thomas tilted his head. Slight L clearly. Entertained. "We'll talk later, Miss Stone. I have some ideas." He winked. Grace stumbled out of the room, her face burning as the others whispered about the new CEO. All she could think was, he's going to fire me, or worse, he's going to promote me just to torture me. Slowly. Back at her desk. Her colleague Rachel walked over with a mischievous grin. "What was that between you and the boss? Do you know him?" "No, I mean, yes. Sort of, it's complicated. He looked at you like he's seen you before. Like in a movie. A drama. With intense background music." "Rachel, if I tell you, promise you won't laugh." Rachel's eyes widened. "Now I have to know." Grace looked around, leaned in, and whispered, I got into his car thinking it was an Uber, told him to drive me here, gave him directions, talked about my socks and my $9 croissant. Rachel clapped a hand over her mouth, trying to hold back a laugh. No way, yes way. You ordered the CEO of the company to drive you. That's legendary, almost poetic. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Grace whispered, if I get fired, will you give me a ride home? Rachel grinned. If you get fired, I'm printing the story and framing it. But judging by the way he looked at you, I don't think you're getting fired. Grace buried her face in her hands, and for a second deep down, she also didn't think he was going to fire her. But that wasn't the problem. The problem was he was having way too much fun with this, and Grace was certain Thomas Miller wasn't the type of man to just let a joke slide. Grace Stone had two certainties in life at that moment. First, she had become a living legend in the company hallways, and second, she was about to be fired ever since she had left the meeting room. She could feel the looks being exchanged over the monitors. Some were curious, others purely entertained, and of course there were those offering sympathetic glances, only making Grace more paranoid. She sat at her desk and pretended to be deeply focused on analyzing a spreadsheet in reality. She had opened a blank file and stared at it for a long 10 minutes. "Are you okay?" Rachel asked, appearing beside her with a cup of coffee. "I'm in denial," Grace replied. "I'm hiding behind a fake spreadsheet pretending to be invisible. If Thomas Miller doesn't see me, maybe I won't get fired. It's foolproof logic, okay. But he's already seen you. He's already spoken to you. He's already driven you to work." Rachel tried not to laugh by now. "He might even know the name of your first-grade teacher." Grace buried her face in her hands, and I even called his car an Uber with a CEO scent. Maybe he found it funny he did. That's what scares me. As if to confirm her words, the phone on the desk rang. Grace froze. Rachel picked it up before she could decide between answering or pretending to be in a coma project. "Department, yes, of course." Rachel looked at Grace with wide eyes and covered the phone's mouthpiece. "It's him. He wants to talk to you." "Now." "I'm dead," Grace whispered. "Will you come to my funeral only if there are snacks?" Grace picked up the phone with trembling hands. "Hello, Miss Stone. Could you come to my office, please?" said the unmistakably calm and firm voice of Thomas Miller. "Yes, I'll be right there," she answered, trying to sound professional. Though her soul had already escaped through the emergency exits, she stood up with the grace of a broken robot. Adjusted, her blouse, ran a hand through her hair, and walked down the hallway as if heading to the elimination round of a reality show. Along the way, a colleague murmured a near-ceremonial good luck. Another simply gave her a look of sympathy. When she reached the CEO's office, the door was slightly open. She took a deep breath and knocked twice. "Come in," said the voice. Grace stepped in slowly. Thomas was standing near the window, hands in his pockets. Looking out. "Mr. Miller, you called for me?" He turned around slowly, the same calm gaze, the same enigmatic expression, but now with a hint of amusement. "Yes. Miss Stone, please have a seat." She sat down, hands folded in her lap, knees together, her posture straighter than in any etiquette class. "First of all, I want to thank you for the transportation this morning," he said. Grace's eyes widened. "Sir, I'm so sorry. I swear it wasn't intentional. My phone died. The car looked just like the one from the app, and you stopped right next to me. I thought it was my Uber, and you decided to take charge, like a special operations commander." She bit her lip. "I was desperate. Third-day rain, spilled coffee, mismatched socks. I wasn't at my best. And yet you had the audacity to give instructions, comment on overpriced croissants, and compliment my car based on its scent of wealth." He stepped closer to his desk, placing both hands on it. That was different. "Mr. Miller, if this is a warning or a termination, I understand. I just ask that it doesn't go on my record." The last thing I need is to explain this in a future interview. Thomas sat in the chair across from her. Miss Stone, why are you so sure you're getting fired? Because CEOs usually don't have a sense of humor, she replied automatically, and I treated you like my personal driver. He raised an eyebrow. And what if I told you I liked your honesty? I'd say you're testing me. Maybe. I am. Grace swallowed hard. In that case, I'm going to fail. Miserably. Thomas crossed his arms, watching her for a moment. Are you good at what you do? She blinked. I believe. So I'm still learning, of course, but I have a good memory. I'm organized, and I know my way around systems. And I can be discreet when I'm not getting into the wrong cars. And you have a sense of humor. That's rare around here. She gave a small smile. So that means I'm not fired. Not yet, he said, standing up. But I'd recommend confirming the driver's name before getting into random cars. Lessons learned, plenty of them. Oh. He added, already turning back to the window, and before I forget, that croissant really does cost $9. I thought it was outrageous, too. Grace laughed, surprised. So you've been there once, and I still regret it. She stood up slowly, feeling less tension in her body. Can I get back to work? You can? And Miss Stone? She stopped at the door. Yes. Next time you get a ride with a stranger, lock the car door, especially if the stranger happens to be the CEO of the company. She let out a nervous laugh and left the room, trying to keep her composure until she was far enough away to smile openly, back at her desk. Rachel was in full spy mode. Well, are you alive? Fired, promoted. Did he propose? Still alive, still employed, and no ring. What did he say? That I have a sense of humor and that I should be careful with strangers, especially if they're billionaires. Rachel's eyes widened. He actually said that in different words. But yeah, you do realize you've become the center of attention, right? I do. But that's fine. As long as I still have my ID badge, I'm at peace. Rachel handed her a muffin in solidarity. Eat this. You deserve it. Grace took a bite gratefully. Maybe things weren't so bad after all. The next day, Grace arrived 10 minutes early. She double-checked the driver's name. Double-checked on the license plate, and just to be safe. She walked. When she entered the building, she ran into Thomas in the hallway. He gave her that same subtle smirk. Did you check your Uber today twice? I'm proud of you. She kept walking, hiding. A small smile, Rachel appeared out of nowhere. Something's changing between you two. Stop. Don't start. I'm just saying this rom-com is writing itself. Grace rolled her eyes, but deep down, maybe she was starting to like him the next morning. Grace walked into the office with the focus and discipline of a soldier on a secret mission. She had barely slept, dreamed she was driving a wagon full of $9 croissants, and woke up with one certainty: Thomas Miller was up to something good. Morning, Rachel. She said, way too tense for this early good morning. You sound like you're about to take an astronaut entrance exam. I'm preparing for the worst. Thomas Miller complimented me yesterday. That's never just a compliment, it's a trap. A storm warning. Rachel laughed over her coffee. You're overreacting. Maybe he just, I don't know, likes you? Grace raised an eyebrow. A CEO, he doesn't like people. He categorizes, evaluates, and reorganizes them, like files on a computer. Okay? But did you notice the way he smiled when he mentioned the croissant? Yes, like someone who has already decided my fate. And that fate is getting roped into some crazy plan. Just because I said too much in a car that wasn't even mine. Before Rachel could respond, her desk phone rang. She picked up. Yes, oh sure, yes, she's here. She covered the receiver and whispered, CEO's office now. Grace felt her knees go weak. See, it's happening, she said, standing up like someone heading for execution. Take your coffee mug, just in case it's an emotional trap, and he offers you coffee. Thomas was seated at his desk when she walked in, looking relaxed, focused on his tablet. "Mr. Miller, you asked for me, Miss Stone, yes, please have a seat." She sat down, adjusting her skirt with a nervous habit she couldn't shake. "I need your help with something specific," he said, setting the tablet down. "We're hosting a group of investors on Friday. I need someone to go through the entire floor with the maintenance team beforehand. Check the lighting. Make sure the coffee is working. Printer's small details. No one notices until they go wrong. Of course, I can pass that along to the maintenance team. No, I want you to oversee it personally." Grace blinked me. "But sir, isn't this something management should?" "Exactly. That's why I picked you. I need sharp eyes. You notice things that are out of place. Like when you get into a stranger's car, for example." Grace narrowed her eyes. "This is some kind of subtle punishment, isn't it? I prefer to call it a trust exercise. This is sounding dangerously like Mission Impossible. And I hope you accept it." She sighed. "Fine. I'll do it. But I'll need a map, a flashlight, and maybe a therapist afterward. Excellent, start on the 10th floor. The maintenance team is waiting for you." Grace stood up, but before she could leave, he added, "Oh, and don't forget to test the coffee machine. Nothing turns investors away like a lukewarm cappuccino." 3 hours later, Grace was on the 10th floor holding a notepad, standing next to two maintenance workers, a roll of duct tape, and now sporting a white paint stain on her blouse. "This is starting to feel like one of those home makeover shows," she muttered, jotting down flickering light, "urgent replacement, Miss Grace. One of the technicians called the printer in room B is jammed again," it said. "It was going to spit out paper, but it just groaned. I'm on it. But if it spits paper in my face, I'm suing the machine." When she got to the room, she smacked the side of the printer 3 times. Nothing all right time for the tradition additional protocol. She said, then crouched down and pulled out the paper tray with the expertise of someone who had suffered through this before. And suddenly, Grace Rachel's voice rang out from the doorway. Grace hit her head on the printer panel. "Ow, what, Thomas is coming down? He wants to see the progress? Of course he does. Reality show style, CEO always shows up right in the middle of chaos." Minutes later, Thomas walked onto the floor, and there was Grace, her head halfway inside a printer, a smudge of ink on her cheek, and her blouse stuck in one of the trays. "Need some help?" he asked, trying not to laugh. "I need a new life," she replied. Not moving or a rescue team specialized in killer printers, he took 2 steps forward and carefully pulled her blouse free. Grace stood up. Trying to maintain what little dignity she had, left everything under control here, he asked, "Well, aside from the fact that the machine attacked me, the coffee on the 9th floor is weaker than rainwater and the perception carpet. Smells like a damp closet. Everything's perfect." Thomas smiled. "I like your honesty, even if it is brutal. I call it dramatic efficiency." He glanced over some of her notes. "Well done. Keep up the good work, you're doing better than I expected. Was that a compliment or another joke?" "I'm still deciding." The next day, Grace returned to her desk, thinking she could finally breathe. But there was an envelope waiting for her. She opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. "Grace, we need you to review the annual financial report. Apparently, it disappeared from the digital folder. I'm counting on you, Thomas." Her eyes widened. "He wants me to review the annual financial report," she asked. Stunned, Rachel's eyes widened, too. "That's like a top-secret mission on hard mode. If you mess up a single number, the company implodes. And if I get it right, he'll throw another impossible challenge at me. I think Mr. Miller is testing your limits. He's testing my sanity." She took a deep breath and got to work. 3 hours later, she had corrected inconsistencies, standardized graphs, and discovered that someone had included a budget line for chocolate expenses under company costs. "This is an amusement park for accountants," she muttered, her eyes burning. In the afternoon, Thomas appeared beside her desk, silent like a ninja in a suit, so survived the report. Barely. But I've lost faith in humanity. Someone's been spending company money on chocolates. Good. Can you come to my office? Grace got up and followed him. She was already getting used to these periodic visits to the CEO's lair. What did you think of the report, he asked. As they sat down there, are numbers that look completely made up hidden expenses and spreadsheets more disorganized than my sock drawer. I agree, and now, thanks to you, we're going to reorganize everything. I want you to join the next financial department meetings. Her eyes widened. You want me to attend the finance meetings? I want you there. You don't have to speak, just observe. But I expect your reports at the end of each week. Is this a promotion? Not yet. It's an evaluation, more tests, trust. Miss Stone is built over time. She smiled, tired, but strangely satisfied for the record. I'm still waiting for my rating on the croissant report. 5 stars and an extra pair of penguin socks by the end of the week. Grace was exhausted, but she felt something unusual. A strange sense of satisfaction at surviving Thomas's trials. Rachel noticed you're enjoying this, enjoying what these mystery CEO tests. You keep complaining, but you're more energized than ever. I am not. Yes, you are. And I'll tell you why. You like the challenge. And even more, you like him. Grace nearly dropped her coffee. Like him, Rachel? He's my boss. Yes. Your mysterious, sarcastic, handsome boss who now personally calls on you for everything. Grace stayed silent. Maybe Rachel was right. Maybe the so-called punishment wasn't a punishment at all. Maybe it was just the beginning. It was an ordinary Tuesday for everyone, except Grace Stone. For her, nothing had been ordinary since the day she mistook the company's CEO for a ride-share driver. Since then, her life had become a mix of cryptic spreadsheets, disguised tests, and glances she couldn't quite decipher. Were they judgment or corporate flirtation? That morning, Grace was reviewing reports at the reception of the company's annual event, where Thomas had told her with a small smirk to observe and stay available, a vague instruction with the potential to turn into either a corporate strategy meeting or the plot of a dramatic soap opera. Stay available, she muttered to herself. Translation. Stand here, look useful, but don't touch anything, and smile with your mouth, but not with your eyes. The lobby was bustling. A large backdrop with the company logo decorated the space, while rows of neatly arranged chairs waited for guests, journalists, photographers, and an elegant buffet serving mini sandwiches with fancy French names that no one could pronounce filled the room. Rachel walked past her holding a glass of juice, everything under control. Perfectly fine, Grace replied with a forced smile. I'm the most decorative person at this event. I'm even considering positioning myself like an ornamental plant. Keep an eye on the reporters. One of them is from a big magazine. I think they're going to interview Thomas. Oh, great. I just hope none of them mistake me for someone important. I can barely operate a printer. Rachel walked away, and seconds later, a well-dressed man with a microphone in hand and a rushed expression approached Grace. You work for the company, right? Yes. I'm administrative support. Perfect. I'm short on time. I need a quick statement for today's article. Can you answer a few questions? Just a couple, I promise. Grace blinked me. But I'm just great. We're already recording, he said, subtly gesturing toward the camera behind him. Your name? Grace Stone. Grace. What do you think of the company's new CEO, Thomas Miller? What's it like working with him? Grace froze for a second. Then she remembered the past week reports, secret missions, the murderous printer, the $9 croissant. And of course, Thomas himself looking at her with that knowing smirk that said, I know everything you've done. She smiled. Well, he's intense, mysterious, a little intimidating, if I'm allowed to say that. She chuckled. But he also has a sense of humor, the kind you only notice after you've already fallen for the joke. The reporter looked pleased. Great. And what do employees think of him? There are rumors that he's too demanding. Demanding, absolutely. He demands more coffee than a cafe, and more reports than an audit. But honestly, he makes it work. The company feels different since he arrived. More alive, more fast-paced, more unpredictable, any memorable moments with him. Grace almost said that time I got into his car, thinking it was an Uber. But she held back. Well, let's just say he's the kind of person who surprises you when you think you're about to be fired. He gives you a challenge, and when you think you're going to fail, he already expected you to figure it out. Fantastic. This will make a great piece, thanks. He rushed off before Grace could even process what had just happened. She looked at the still recording camera and murmured, "Wait, was that an official interview the camera shut off?" Too late. Hours later, Grace was back at her desk, trying to ignore the knot of anxiety in her stomach. The event went smoothly. Thomas didn't show up in the lobby again, and no one mentioned the interview. She even thought that with some luck, maybe the article wouldn't get published. But the next day, that hope died. Rachel came sprinting down the hall with a tablet in hand. "Grace, you're on the Business Leaders and Focus website. There's a video of your interview." What? Grace jumped out of her chair. "It's on the front page. Look at this." Rachel hit play on the screen. There she was, the sleek event backdrop behind her, the fancy mini sandwiches in the background, and the face of someone who thought she was just chatting with a friendly reporter. The headline read, "Employee Reveals Secrets of Diamond Enterprises' Mysterious New CEO Secrets." I just said he's demanding and that he intimidates people, and that he has hidden humor, and that you almost got fired, but turned it into a challenge. Oh no. Rachel could barely breathe from laughing there. Even comments, "Look at this one. I want a mysterious CEO in my life, too." And this one, "She's hilarious." Let her host the company's channel. Grace buried her face in her hands. "I'm getting fired for real this time. I brought this on myself." At that exact moment, the phone rang. Rachel answered. She stopped laughing immediately. "It's him. He wants to see you now." Grace froze. "Rachel, if I don't come back, take care of my filing cabinet and my sticky notes. They're my legacy." She knocked on the door. Thomas responded with a short, firm, "Come in." He was sitting at his desk watching the exact video of the interview. He paused it as soon as she walked in. "Mr. Miller, I swear on everything sacred that I had no idea that was an official interview. I thought it was just a casual question, like, 'What's your favorite juice?' And before I knew it, I was already talking." Thomas kept a serious expression. "He needs more coffee than a coffee shop," he recited true. "I buy two just to make sure I have one for myself. More reports than an audit." Well, technically also. True, intimidating, but with a sense of humor. Okay, that one I actually thought was a compliment. Thomas leaned forward. "Grace, do you have any idea what you've done?" Her eyes widened. "Was it that bad?" He stayed silent for 3 seconds, then he sighed. "It was a success." She blinked. "Excuse me?" "The video went viral. HR has already received dozens of resumes with the subject line, 'I want to work with the mysterious CEO.' You're joking. I haven't mastered that skill yet, but I'm considering it." Grace didn't know whether to sit down, cry, or say thank you. "So I'm not fired. On the contrary. The marketing team wants you in a few internal videos. Me? Why, you're spontaneous, funny, and human. That's the image the company wants now." She placed a hand on her chest. "Mr. Miller, with all due respect, is this company." "Okay, no, but it's better with you here." Grace choked on her own breath. "That was really. I wasn't expecting that. Don't expect too much from me, Stone. Remember, I'm still the mysterious CEO. Mysterious, sure. But now you're also an internet star. Welcome to the age of memes for the first time in a long while." Thomas smiled. "A real Smile. Get back to work. Oh, and congratulations on the interview. Thank you. I'll try not to give any more by accident. Please. She stood up to leave just before she reached the door. He called her again. Grace, yes, you look good in the video. You're not just spontaneous, you're captivating. She froze for half a second. Then she smiled. Thank you, Mr. Miller, you're surprising too. And she walked out this time without tripping. Ever since the viral video, Grace Stone felt like she was wearing an invisible badge that said the interview girl. It was as if the entire company, previously indifferent to her temporary presence, suddenly knew her name, her face, her voice, and the croissant joke. You're famous, Rachel commented, popping a grape into her mouth while flipping through the company's internal bulletin board where someone had already pinned a screenshot of the interview with the caption, "More coffee than a coffee shop." Famous. I'm a walking GIF. Grace replied, sitting down. A co-worker asked me for an autograph today on a sugar packet. That's the price of fame. At least you didn't get fired. Not yet, but I'm sure Thomas is up to something. He looked at me this morning like he was about to send an email titled, "Let's talk." Rachel swallowed the grape with difficulty. Well, I heard a rumor that there's an investor dinner tomorrow night, something important. And the CEO needs someone to accompany him. Because let's just say there's a certain investor who's more interested in him than in the company's stocks. Grace blinked. Wait, he's bringing a date as a strategy exactly. And guess who's the top candidate? Grace's eyes widened. No, he wouldn't. He might. He wants to. That's crazy. Rachel shrugged, and the dinner's called Night of Strategic Connections. Sounds like a dating app, but it's real before they could speculate further. The desk phone rang. I already know, Grace muttered. I'll pick up and HEK say, Miss Stone, I have an unexpected invitation for you. Then he'll wink over the phone and hang up. Rachel laughed, or he'll just send an RSVP link and say, be there. Grace. Picked up projects. Department. Grace speaking. Pause. Yes, sir. Of course I'm on my way. She hung up and turned to Rachel. I hate being right in Thomas Miller's office. Grace walked in with careful steps. She already expected something unusual, another test, another trap disguised as a task, but nothing prepared her for what she heard. Miss Stone, I'd like you to accompany me to a dinner with investors tomorrow night. Grace blinked twice. What? I need someone who has at least some knowledge of the company's internal departments, who knows how to behave in public, and he studied her with that analytical look, who can improvise well in award situations, awkward situations like mistaking a CEO for an Uber driver. Exactly. Grace sat down trying to process. Sorry, sir, but why me? Because I trust you. Because the investors have already seen the interview. Because you're spontaneous, approachable, and unpredictable. All things this company needs to seem like right now. And because I need to avoid Miss Delaney asking me to dance again. Delaney, one of the investors, very powerful, very persistent, and with terrible taste in music. Grace tried not to laugh. So I'm going there as a distraction, as an ally. She crossed her arms. This is starting to sound like a spy mission. Do I need a disguise, dark glasses, a fake name? You just need to be well-dressed, arrive on time, and know how to interrupt me when necessary. Interrupt how? When I signal, just make something up. Say you spilled juice on my suit, that you need urgent help, that someone called from the building about an imaginary fire. Be creative. Grace smiled. This could be fun. It could also be a disaster. But I'm counting on you. She stood up. So tomorrow at 8. In the evening, I'll send the address and details by email. Oh, and wear something that says I'm smart, but also a little dangerous. Does that even exist? Find out. The next morning, Grace had mentally changed her outfit at least 7 times. Hanging in her closet were a simple black dress, an elegant burgundy ensemble, and a blazer and trousers combo that made her look like a district attorney. "You need help," Rachel said, stepping into the room without knocking or a stylist. "I'm panicking." "What outfit says I'm smart and mysterious, but I'm definitely not flirting with the CEO?" Rachel crossed her arms. "You don't want to look like you're flirting with the CEO." Grace hesitated. "Okay, maybe a little, but not obviously, just casually amazing. The burgundy dress. Trust me. And where? Those heels that give you 5% more confidence and 10% more pain." Grace nodded at 7:58 p.m. She arrived at the address Thomas had sent. It was an upscale restaurant with dim lighting, soft music, and waiters who seemed professionally trained in absolute silence as she stepped out of the car. The evening breeze hit her face. She walked inside, and there he was. Thomas Miller in a dark gray suit, his hair perfectly styled, his expression serious and a slight smile when he saw her. "You're right on time. I got here 15 minutes early and just circled the block, battle strategy, nervous strategy." Thomas offered his arm and her to the table. They sat down. Grace glanced around. "Target in 3, 2, 1, Thomas murmured, and just like that, Miss Delaney appeared, a striking red dress, strong perfume, and a feline smile. "Thomas, darling," she said, placing her hands on his shoulders. "I've missed you." Thomas stood politely. "Delaney, nice to see you again. This is Grace Stone, my special assistant for integration affairs." Grace extended her hand with a smile. "Nice to meet you." Delaney shook her hand, giving her a slow once-over. "How interesting have you two been working together long since the $9 croissant?" Grace replied, with a grin. Delaney frowned. Thomas cleared his throat. "Grace is very efficient. She's been a key part of our new approach. The new approach seems younger," Delaney commented, smoothing her hair. Grace smiled, young, bold, and with themed socks. Thomas nearly choked on his water. The dinner continued with polite conversation, strategic laughs, and a few passive-aggressive comments from Delaney. Every time she pushed, Thomas would glance at Grace, and she would respond with an immediate excuse. "Mr. Miller, your tie looks crooked. Mr. Miller, the restaurant manager wants to know if you prefer a window seat. Mr. Miller, we need to check that urgent report on people who interfere with formal dinner intendas." By the time dessert arrived, Delaney had lost interest. When she finally left, Thomas exhaled. "You were perfect. I'm an improvisation machine, but I'm going to charge for this 1 full week with no surprise reports negotiable, and a $1 croissant. Now you're pushing it." They laughed on the way out. Thomas walked Grace to her car for a moment. They stood in silence. "Thank you for tonight. Grace, it was fun and challenging and stressful. A full package you have. That effect, a mix of chaos and solutions, and you're the hardest CEO to figure out that I've ever met. Keep trying." She opened her car door, but before getting in, he said, "Grace." She turned. "Yes, you look dangerous tonight." She smiled, and you almost looked human. He tilted his head. "Good night, Miss Stone." "Good night, Mr. Miller." And with that, she got into her car, her heart beating slightly off. Rhythm: the morning after the investors' dinner, Greystone arrived at the company trying to go unnoticed. Given the last few days, that was an impossible mission. She was already the girl from the viral video, the $9 croissant girl, the accidental interview girl. And now, according to HR rumors, possibly the CEO's new gala companion, Rachel, was waiting for her with a coffee and a mischievous smile. So Agent Stone was the mission successful, completed and with no casualties. But these high heels left me with permanent damage. I saw you leaving the restaurant with him arm in arm at night. The moon was shining, Grace Rachel. It was just proper manners. The moon had nothing to do with it. And the burgundy dress was also just protocol. Grace rolled her eyes. I was just saving the boss from an overly enthusiastic investor. It was a professional favor period, you say that, but I see a little smile there. Rachel pointed with the coffee cup lid. The classic I liked it more than I should have. SMSM Grace ignored the comment and turned on her computer. But yes, there was a hidden smile deep down, and it kept showing up every time she remembered Thomas saying, "You look dangerous tonight." She barely had time to breathe before a notification popped up. Emergency meeting in the auditorium 10 a.m., mandatory and below in small letters. With the CEO present, the mystery is back. Rachel said, "Every time there's a surprise meeting with Thomas, something changes. I just hope it's not another department restructuring. I barely got used to the new office. Or maybe he's going to announce your new role as the official dinner companion for strategic meetings." Grace shot her a sharp look. "If that happens, I'll print my own resignation letter." The auditorium was packed. Employees took their seats in neat rows, whispering about what the meeting could be about. Grace tried to find a discreet spot in the back, but Rachel pulled her into the third row. "He'll see us from here," Grace whispered, nervous. "Exactly why are you like this?" "Because it's fun." Minutes later, the lights adjusted and Thomas walked in. Impeccable suit, calm expression, commanding presence. He stepped onto the stage with the usual posture, like someone who knows exactly what they're doing, but something felt different that morning. His gaze was lighter, and when he spotted Grace, he gave a tiny nod, almost imperceptible. She froze for a moment, then pretended to scratch her head to hide the blush on her cheeks. Thomas started talking about the company's new phase. He presented charts, goals, process improvements, and much to everyone's surprise, a new internal communication campaign, real people, real results. Then he projected onto the big screen Grace's interview video. "Oh no," she sank into her chair. "I'm going straight to limbo after this." The video played in full. To her surprise, the audience laughed at the right moments. They clapped at the end, and several coworkers glanced at her with admiration. "This is surreal," she whispered. Thomas returned to the microphone. "This video represents the direction we want to take, to show who we are, with humor, authenticity, and courage. And for that, I'd like to personally thank Miss Grace Stone, who without knowing it set the perfect tone for what we're building." The audience applauded. Grace wanted to turn into mist and disappear. "Please, Grace, come up here," he added. "No, no, no," she whispered. But Rachel was already pushing her into the aisle. She walked up to the stage with shaky legs. Thomas extended his hand, and she shook it with a nervous smile. "Would you like to say a few words?" he asked, handing her the microphone. Grace took it as if it were a hot potato high. I really just wanted to get an Uber and make it to work without getting fired. I didn't expect to end up in a video, much less on a giant screen, much less here." The audience laughed, but if there's one thing I've learned, it's that sometimes you get into the wrong car and end up on the right path. More. Applause. Even Thomas looked a little surprised at her words. She quickly handed back the microphone and stepped off the stage before she could mess up. But the universe, as always, had other plans. As she stepped down, she tripped on her heel. She didn't fall completely, but it was enough to let out a little yelp, lose her balance, and grab onto the first thing. Within reach, decorative plant stand, which toppled over with her. The pot hit the ground and shattered. The room fell silent. Still, on her knees, surrounded by pieces of ceramic, Grace looked up at the audience with an awkward smile. It was a fake plant. "Okay," an explosion of laughter. Thomas immediately stepped forward and helped her up. He was laughing. "You have a unique talent for making an impact. Hire me as an event entertainer. I knock over plants wherever I go. Are you okay? Only my ego is hurt, but it's been through worse." Back at her desk, her co-workers welcomed her. Like a celebrity. A clumsy one. But still a celebrity. "You are officially a legend in this department." Rachel said I want my symbolic wheelchair or a trophy shaped like a cactus. That afternoon, Grace thought everything would go back to normal until she got an email with the subject internal, dinner special guests, and the message. Grace, your presence is expected at the informal appreciation dinner for event participants today. 7:00 p.m., main conference room TM. She checked the time. 2 hours until dinner 2 hours. To come up with an excuse not to go, but none of them seemed good enough at 7:00 p.m. Grace was there. She didn't know what to expect, but as soon as she stepped into the main conference room, she realized this wasn't a typical dinner. The lights were dimmed, a table was set for 4. Thomas was already seated with 2 directors when he saw her. He stood up and pulled out a chair. I thought you wouldn't come. I thought about skipping. But then, I figured this might be some kind of secret test, maybe. Or maybe it's just a dinner. Not everything has to be a mystery. Grace, she sat down. The dinner was simple, light conversation, words of appreciation, and a few jokes about her accident with the plant. When the others left. Taz stayed, and so did she. It's been a long day. She said you handled it with grace. Even when you were on the floor, I'm thinking of launching a course. How to humiliate yourself in public and still get applauded. I bet it would sell well. A comfortable silence settled between them. Grace, he said, his voice softer. You've been a constant surprise since you accidentally got into my car, and you've been a constant challenge since you decided not to kick me out. I never planned on firing you. Really? Actually, my first thought was, who is this crazy woman, and why is she telling me to turn left? Grace laughed, fair enough. But then you made me laugh, and that doesn't happen often. Almost never. She bit her lip, trying to hide a smile. Have you always been like this? Like what? Mysterious, observant, silently sarcastic, maybe? But lately I feel different because of me. He met her eyes. A little. Yes. Grace didn't know what to say. He continued. We don't know where this is going, but I like the idea of finding out. She smiled, feeling her heart race as long as it's not in a black car stuck at a red light. He chuckled. I promise. Next time I'll let you drive. Terrible idea, best one. So far they sat there for a while longer unhurried, and for the first time in weeks, Grace didn't feel lost that morning. Grace, Stone knew something was off the moment she walked into the office. There was a strange, almost solemn silence in the air, the kind that comes before something important or disastrous. As she passed the reception desk, she saw 2 security guards whispering in the elevator. One employee murmured to another, "He's different today. Different how less cold, more lethal on the team's floor." Rachel was already waiting for Grace, eyes wide. You won't believe this, she said in a hushed tone. Thomas is sick. Grace blinked like red nose, and a blanket over his shoulders, I don't know. But he walked in with a tissue, refused coffee. And he's silent, more silent than usual, and he didn't even respond to the CFO's good morning. She froze mid-hallway. Grace's eyes widened. Wait, he has a cold, obviously, but you know how he is. He won't admit it. He'll deny it until the end. He'll probably say it's mild atmospheric congestion or a corporate respiratory adjustment. Grace sat down, trying to process the idea of Thomas Miller. Being human, that explains last night's email. She muttered what email he said, one with the subject meeting plan changed, but all said was, meeting canceled, new files attached. No good morning, no best regards, I thought it was a glitch. But now I get it. Real virus. Rachel laughed. So what are you going to do? Nothing. He's an adult. He's a CEO. He has an empire. He can handle his own virus. But deep down, Grace knew she couldn't just ignore it. At noon, after finishing a report, she grabbed her bag, went down to the cafe in the lobby, and returned with a bag full of items: ginger tea with lemon and honey, 2 chamomile tea bags, a bowl of chicken soup with vegetables, and a vitamin C bar that promises to restore your soul in 24 hours. Rachel watched, amused. You said you wouldn't do anything, and now you look like the office wellness aunt. I'm not taking care of you, I'm delivering. It's different. Grace knocked on Thomas's office door. No response. She knocked again. "Mr. Miller, it's Grace, come in," said a voice hoarse. She slowly opened the door. Thomas was sitting at his desk, surrounded by a heavy silence, a crumpled tissue in his hand, his eyes slightly red. His jacket was draped over the chair, and his tie was a little loose. It was official: the CEO had been defeated by a virus. "Wow," she said before she could stop herself. "You look almost human." "I'm fine," he replied, his voice nasal. "Just a slight thermal imbalance. You have a fever, I have focus and strategic congestion." She laughed. "Yep, definitely. A fever. Here." She placed the items on his desk: emergency plan for a CEO in distress. Thomas looked at the bag as if she had brought him an exotic animal. "What is this, basic care? You're going to drink this tea, now eat this soup later, and stop pretending you're ready to take over the stock market." Your voice. "Sounds like a duck with sinusitis." He raised an eyebrow but couldn't hide his laughter, which quickly turned into a dry cough. Grace pulled up a chair and sat across from him. "Why are you even here? Everyone at your level just emails from home when they sneeze. Because I don't take days off. Because you're a robot. Because the robot has deadlines, and now the robot has a virus." Was that a pun? It was. And it was great. Thomas took a deep breath and looked at the TE. "You didn't have to do this, I know. But you would have done it for me, probably in your own weird way, swapping coffee for tea and spreadsheets for soup." He picked up the cup, took a sip, and grimaced. "This is terrible. That means it's working." Silence. "Thank you," he murmured after a few seconds. "You're welcome." Throughout the afternoon, Grace made several trips to Thomas's office, bringing more tea, a thermometer, and trying to convince him to go home. "If you collapse in here, HR is going to get blamed," she said. "And honestly, I don't want to be the employee who watched the CEO pass out in the middle of a call with investors. I'm not going to pass out, okay? But if you do, can I take over your schedule for a week? Not even with a high fever." Had to try at the end of the day, she made one last attempt. "All right? Now I'm serious. You're pale. Your voice is in slow motion mode. Your eyes look like a baby panda that hasn't slept in 3 nights. Go home. Grace, go home." He hesitated. "Only if you leave me alone for a day. Negotiable." He stood up slowly. Grace grabbed his jacket and handed it to him straight to bed. "No emails. No, I'll just review this one report. No, I'll take this time to reorganize the entire company budget. Are you giving me orders? I'm taking care of my daily source of challenges. If you stop, my life gets boring, literally." Thomas gave a weak smile. "You're impossible and you're stubborn a tie, then I'll take it." The next morning, Grace arrived earlier than ever on her desk. There was a small box with her name on it inside a note. "I disappeared for the day, as ordered, but don't think you've won. I'm just recharging for the next challenge, Thomas." Along with the note, a chocolate bar and a keychain shaped like a penguin holding a hockey stick. Grace laughed out loud, loud enough for Rachel to peek in. "What's that?" A veiled threat in the form of affection. "He's flirting with you. He's paying me back for my emergency plan. He got you a penguin keychain with a hockey stick. I mentioned it in the car the day I got in, thinking it was my Uber." Rachel blinked. He remembered that. He remembered everything. She was quiet for a moment. Then she carefully placed the keychain in her bag, and that day, as she organized the files, Grace realized something had changed, not just between her and Thomas, but inside herself. She was no longer the temporary assistant tripping over her own nerves. She was someone with a voice, with confidence, and someone who made a sick CEO drank ginger tea under protest. And maybe she was starting to fall for him on the last Friday of the month, Diamond Enterprises was preparing for an event both eagerly awaited and feared by many, the company's annual holiday party. It had a reputation for causing legendary mishaps, unexpected alliances, surprise romances, exes appearing out of nowhere, and spreadsheets forgotten in the bathroom. Greystone was determined not to be the protagonist of any of those stories. Stick to the plan, she told herself, adjusting her dress in the office bathroom mirror. Arrive, smile, talk as little as possible. Eat a canap. Don't trip. Don't sing, don't dance, don't kiss anyone, and leave before dessert. Rachel, of course, had other plans. You look stunning, Rachel said, barging in without knocking. Thomas Miller is going to faint or smile, which for him is almost the same thing. I didn't get dressed up for him. Oh, then for what? The spreadsheets, the lukewarm sodas, the playlist with 5 songs and 2 remixes. Grace rolled her eyes. I dressed up because I like to look presentable, professional, and flawless in those accidental photos that end up on the company bulletin board. Sure. And the red lipstick, was that to intimidate the competition? No, to keep people from talking too much. The ballroom was decorated with soft lighting, elegant balloons, and a dance floor glowing faintly at the center. A DJ and a suit and sneakers managed the music, while servers moved through the crowd with trays of drinks. Grace walked in with Rachel by her side, trying to appear casual, as if she was completely at ease at lavish F-star hotel parties. Mission 1. Find the WH does, Rachel said, grabbing 2. Mission 2. Avoid tripping, Grace replied, gripping her glass firmly. Mission 3. Locate the CEO. Grace hesitated. He probably won't come. He was sick. Remember, that was Tuesday. Today is Friday. If he got better, he'll be here, and if he shows up, he'll notice you. I'd bet my morning muffin on it, Rachel. He's my boss, and you're the reason he started smiling in meetings before he was a marble statue with a corporate credit card. Grace tried to ignore that, but her heart skipped just a little. And then, as if the universe wanted to test her, he arrived. Thomas Miller, dark suit, no tie, hair perfectly styled back, and that same gaze somewhere between intriguing and unsettling Grace froze for a second. She hadn't expected him to look so different outside the office, more relaxed, more dangerous. He moved through the room, greeting a few people. Then his eyes found hers, and with deliberate ease, he walked straight toward her. Miss Stone, he said, stopping in front of her. Mr. Miller, she replied, trying to sound more composed than she felt. You look beautiful and you're alive, which is a victory considering your feverish performance on Tuesday. He smiled, thanks to that ginger tea that tasted like homemade poison. It's a family secret, one that should have stayed a secret. They laughed. May I walk you to your table? He asked. Grace hesitated but nodded. He led her to a table near the indoor garden, away from the loud music. Are you okay? He asked. After a moment, I am just trying to get through another company party without making a scene. You already made a scene, a good one, and also tripped over a plant that was free entertainment. Everyone appreciated it. Grace smiled. The mood between them felt different, lighter, closer. Do you usually stay at these events? I usually show up and disappear. But this year I figured it was worth staying a little longer. For the horse dovas, for the company. Grace swallowed hard. She was about to respond when a voice interrupted, one she'd recognize anywhere. Grace, she turned slowly, already knowing this moment would throw the night off balance. It was him, Nate, the ex. "What are you doing here?" Grace asked, surprised. "I was invited. I work with one of the investors, but wow, you look incredible." Thomas remained silent, watching Hi, Nate, she replied, forcing a smile. "This is unexpected. Last time I saw you, you were freaking out over interviews, and now viral videos, gala parties. Who would have thought life changes, and your taste in mysterious men hasn't changed?" "I see." Thomas stood up slowly. "Good evening," he said, extending a firm handshake. "Thomas Miller!" Nate looked visibly uncomfortable. "Oh, you're the CEO of the company where Grace works, and right now I'm offering her company something you apparently didn't do very well." Grace held her breath. Nate coughed. "Well, it was nice seeing you." "Grace, you too," she replied. Nate walked away. T sat back down, his expression still serious. "I'm sorry about that," Grace said. "You don't have to be, actually. Now, I understand a few things. It doesn't matter." "I know." Grace looked at him for a second longer than she should have. "Why did you stay?" "Because Thomas sighed. Because tonight I wanted to be wherever you were." Grace bit her lip. Her heart pounded a little harder. "Thomas, Grace," he interrupted, leaning slightly forward. "You've thrown me off balance, taken me out of control, out of my logic, and now you're pulling me out of my comfort zone. That's good and terrifying." As she started, but Rachel cut in, breathless. "They're calling everyone to the dance floor, prize drawings, the director's speech, and the partner dance. It's tradition." Grace looked at Thomas. "I don't dance very well, and I don't usually dance." He stood up, offering his hand. "But maybe today is an exception." She took his hand, and together they walked to the dance floor. The entire ballroom seemed to disappear. The lights softened, the music slowed. They started dancing, a bit hesitant at first, but soon they found the rhythm. "You know what's going to happen tomorrow, right?" she whispered. "Gossip, comments, edited photos on the HR board, exactly. And you know what else will happen? What I'm G to ask you out, but not as the CEO, as Thomas." Grace smiled, and I might say yes, but not as an employee, as Grace. The music played on, and they danced in silence, with a kind of connection that can't be explained, only felt in the days following the party. Something changed. Grace could feel it. Even though no one said anything out loud, it was as if a cold breeze had passed through the halls of Diamond Enterprises, leaving a certain emptiness in the air. Thomas Miller was distant. He still attended meetings, still answered emails with surgical precision, still walked with his usual impeccable posture. But there was an added silence, a subtle absence in his gaze, and with Grace in particular, that silence was deafening. He hadn't mentioned what happened on the dance floor, or the invitation he made, or the unspoken promise that had lingered between them. "Hune's avoiding me," Grace murmured to Rachel. 2 days after the party, avoiding you. How he doesn't call me to talk, he doesn't stop by my desk anymore. And today, when we passed each other in the elevator, he said, "Good morning," like I was the night janitor. Maybe he's in denial, confused, or maybe he regrets it. Rachel frowned. That doesn't sound like him. Thomas isn't the type to throw something out there and then run from it. He wasn't. Now he feels like someone else, a reprogrammed robot on her computer screen. His name appeared in a formal email review attachments as agreed. Submit by Friday TM. Nothing more, no jokes, no hidden messages, no virtual smiles. Grace replied with the same formality feeling every keystroke, like she was typing a goodbye. She wasn't ready to accept. On the third day, she decided to confront him. She knocked on his office door twice. "Come in," came his usual voice, just quieter. She stepped in, holding a folder. He was seated. navy blue suit eyes fixed on his laptop screen. He didn't even stand up. I brought the project department's report I finished. Ahead of schedule, as you requested, great. You can leave it on the desk. Grace hesitated but placed the folder down. Thomas, she said deliberately. Breaking the formality, he looked up. But only for a second. Mr. Miller, he corrected. Emotionless, that hurt more than any cold email. What's going on, she asked. Was the company party? Some kind of mass delusion. Did the dance not happen? Did you not ask me out? It was a moment outside protocol, he replied. His voice, calm. And maybe I crossed lines I shouldn't have. Are you saying you regret it? Silence. Grace took a deep breath. I see. She took a step back but paused at the door. You know the problem with moments outside protocol? Thomas, they stay with you. And when you pretend they never happened, the other person is left trying to erase something that's already part of their memory. He said nothing. And Grace walked out that night. At home, she thought about everything. The dance, his words, the connection, and as much as it hurt, she knew she had to stop waiting. He was the CEO, she was temporary, and now it was as if everything had reset to square one. Or worse, the next morning when she arrived at work, there was an envelope on her desk. She recognized the handwriting instantly inside just one sheet of paper. Grace, if I seem distant, it's because I'm trying to protect what's left of my rationality. You threw me off balance, made me laugh on hard days, reminded me that real people exist, but I'm the kind of person who ruins what he touches. And you deserve everything. That's light, everything. I still don't know how to be. TM. Grace held the letter for a few seconds, then she carefully put it away and got to work. But now something in her had changed, too. The days that followed were quiet. Grace did her job with almost robotic efficiency. She answered emails with flawless punctuation and met deadlines with surgical precision, but inside everything was a mess. Thomas's letter remained folded inside her bag like a wound that hadn't yet turned into a scar. She didn't tell Rachel. She didn't cry in the bathroom. She didn't disappear. But she also couldn't laugh the way she used to. Deep down, she knew the distance wasn't out of cruelty. It was fear. He was trying to protect something or someone. But even so, it hurt on Thursday afternoon. Rachel appeared with an envelope in her hand. This is for you straight from Thomas's office. Another report. Grace asked unenthusiastically. No, it's an invitation. She took the envelope. It was black elegant with a company logo in gold inside. A card end of Cycle. Dinner honoring outstanding employees date. Friday, 8 p.m. Location, Laris Restaurant, guest of honor, Grace Stone. She read it twice and looked at Rachel. This doesn't make sense. I'm temporary. You became a legend. And Thomas knows it. He's barely spoken to me all week, and yet he sent this invitation, Grace sighed. This is the final chapter, isn't it? Or the beginning of a new one on Friday. Laris was immaculate, an intimate dining hall, golden lights and a small stage for speeches. Grace arrived in a simple but elegant dress, and with a tight knot in her chest. She didn't know what to expect. She didn't know if Thomas would talk to her or if he would ignore her presence. Once again, as she entered, everyone smiled, waved, and made kind comments. It was strange being the center of attention, when all she wanted was to go unnoticed. Rachel guided her to a table off to the side. "Han not here yet," she said. "Maybe he won't come. Maybe he yunes waiting for the right moment." Minutes later, the host took the stage and opened the event. There were speeches, words of gratitude, small tributes, and then her name was announced tonight. "We want to give special thanks to someone who reminded us of the importance of authenticity." a temporary employee who became the face of a campaign, a symbol of courage, and of course, the protagonist of one of the best stories in our company. Grace walked onto the stage to applause. She took the microphone with trembling hands. I never thought a mix-up with a black car would bring me here. But it did. And it taught me that sometimes the most ridiculous mistakes are the ones that put us on the right path. More. Applause, she stepped down and returned to her table, but Thomas was still nowhere to be seen. She grabbed her bag, ready to leave. What else was there? But before she could take a step, she heard that voice. "I almost lost you twice." She turned. Thomas was there, dark suit, steady gaze once when I got into your car, and again when you walked out of my office with a broken heart. Grace held her breath. And now I'm trying not to make the same mistake. Again. He took a step closer. I was afraid, Grace, afraid of mixing what I felt with what I thought I was supposed to be. But you showed me that feeling is exactly what I was missing. She didn't say anything, she just waited. I'm still complicated, I'm still a CEO, but with you everything feels easier, lighter, more real. Thomas, not as your boss, not as some corporate mission, but as a man. Would you give me the chance to just be that? She smiled. As long as we take separate cars. Next time he laughed, then he reached out his hand. She took it, and that night, between applause, smiles, and memories of the most improbable twist of fate, Grace Stone chose to stay. 2 months had passed since the company dinner. 2 months since the reunion. The heartfelt confession, the touch of their hands, and everything that came after Thomas and Grace decided to take things as simply as possible, or at least as simple as dating the city's most watched CEO could be. At first it was strange. The whispers in the hallways, the looks from co-workers, the emails that arrived with hidden emojis, but they faced it together, the way they had faced everything so far, with sarcasm, patience, and laughter. Their relationship was a daily romantic comedy. There were debates about the right way to put the toilet paper roll, bets on who would make breakfast, and Grace imitating Thomas reading emails out loud in a stiff British robot voice. And then came an ordinary Friday or so, it seemed. Grace had just left at a meeting when she received a message from Thomas. "Come up to the rooftop. I need to show you something." She figured it was just another one of his crazy ideas. Maybe a new company event, a new campaign, or even just an excuse to eat overpriced croissants. But when she got to the rooftop, she saw something completely different. Delicate string lights swayed gently in the breeze. A table sat at the center, holding 2 glasses, scattered flower petals, and soft music playing in the background. Thomas was there, waiting, dressed in a gray suit, with a calm expression. "What is this?" she asked, suspicious. Her heart already racing, a break from routine, a moment outside the usual script. She stepped closer, curious, trying to figure out where this was going. Thomas took her hands. "Grace, I got into a black car that day, thinking it would be just another ordinary ride, but then got in too and turned my world upside down." She laughed. "You turned my world upside down too. I remember everything from your penguin sock with a hockey stick to the way you made me laugh when no one else could." He knelt down. Grace froze Thomas. He pulled a small box from his pocket. "I'm complicated, unpredictable, sometimes a little hard to deal with. But with you everything makes sense. You're my balance. My good kind of chaos. My favorite unexpected twist." Opened the box, a simple, elegant ring with a small stone that seemed made just for her. Grace Stone. "Will you spend the rest of your life laughing at my spreadsheets, getting into the wrong cars, and making the impossible feel like routine? Will you marry me?" She covered her mouth, overwhelmed. Yes, Thomas, 1,000 times. Yes, he slipped the ring onto her finger and she pulled him into a hug, laughing, crying, and trembling all at once. "You are truly impossible," she said through tears, "and now I'm officially your impossible," he replied, kissing her forehead. The wedding took place just weeks later on the same rooftop where he had proposed. No grand ballrooms, no red carpets, just something intimate, joyful, and completely them. The invitations read, "If you laugh, you're in the right spirit. If you trip, you're welcome to stay. And if you get into the wrong car, you've understood the theme." Rachel was the most emotional maid of honor in history. She cried before the ceremony even started. Thomas wore a light blue suit with a pocket square discreetly embroidered with a tiny penguin and a hockey stick. A quiet tribute to that first day, Grace appeared in a light-flowing dress with pearl buttons and a smile so genuine it outshined any decoration. When she walked down the aisle, Thomas could barely breathe. "You look incredible," he said, voice thick with emotion. "And you look nervous. Are you going to faint?" Maybe the ceremony was filled with heartfelt, humorous vows. "I promise to listen when you say you're right," Thomas said. "And I promise to pretend to be surprised when you finally admit it," she replied. When they kissed, the guests cheered, clapped, and one of Rachel's uncles accidentally released confetti too early, making everyone laugh. The reception was a mix of dancing, hugs, and inside jokes. Grace and Thomas danced to the same song from the company party, but this time, no exes, no whispers, no worrying about who was watching. Just them, complete, imperfect real at the end of the night as guests said their goodbyes and the music faded. Thomas took Grace's hand and led her to a quiet spot under the rooftop lights. To think it all started with you yelling, "Go, go, go, speed up," and you saying, "Sorry." But they laughed. If I had told you I wasn't the Uber that day, we would have missed all of this. He kissed her slowly, certainly, and that night, with the distant hum of the city, the flickering rooftop lights, and the memories of the journey that had brought them here, they knew they had found in each other something they never even realized they needed. What did you think of Thomas and Grace's story? Share your thoughts in the comments on a scale from 0 to 10. How would you rate out this story? Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to follow all our stories. And don't forget to check out more emotional stories by clicking here on the end screen.